What's going on, guys? It's back, and today we've got FaZe Clan with their first earnings report ever on the stock market as a publicly traded company, and the stock really liked it for whatever reason. It wasn't the greatest earnings report of all time, but the stock liked it, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day, right? So we get our first looks into one of esports' biggest and most notable brands, and seeing how they're actually doing financially, what's really going on, and how healthy maybe the whole scene is. If one of the top dogs aren't doing great, what does that mean for the rest of the scene? But right here, we could see FaZe Clan. They reported a loss of $9.3 million in Q2. Which is normal for FaZe. They have not been profitable ever in their entire history, which is typically what the story for any single esports org. There is, I think, a very select few that even reached profitability, and the vast majority don't make any money. You can see right here saying the company generated a loss of $9.32 million, continuing to incur quarterly deficits since its inception, never making a profit. So that's going to be maybe more of a problem as time goes on for FaZe. As public markets, you only get so long with them being excited about growth, and as long as you can keep spiraling in growth, then I mean, the profit maybe not the biggest incentive there, but at some point growth is going to slow down, and if you aren't profitable, there's going to be lots of problems for you. But you can also see FaZe leading up to going public. They had lots of announcements pushed out, partnerships. They had their ghost subs with DoorDash. They had bigger people joining the organization. They had Snoop Dogg come on as an investor. That was big for them. And these guys like destroying FaZe Ronaldo, these guys coming on and joining the FaZe brand. But this right here is something to probably take a lot more importance into. Looking right here, saying their Counter-Strike Global Offensive team won the PGL Major in Cologne, and this Pro League Season 15, all within the first half of this year, contributing millions of dollars in prize earnings to FaZe's revenue. Great for FaZe, for the business, bringing in more money, but how reliable is tournament earnings and making money through tournaments? Because obviously there's lots of competition. If you're not constantly winning, then that money starts to really dry up quickly, and that revenue starts to dry up very fast. So it's not a consistent, reoccurring source of revenue, and it's not reliable. You can't just rely on you're going to win every event and make millions of dollars every single time. So that's one worry if you're investing in FaZe for the longer term. Right now, seems like there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of people interested, want to be part owners of FaZe and invest in the stock, and a lot of things moving the stock upward. But longer term is where we really want to focus and kind of see, can they bring in money consistently? Can they become profitable? Are there sights on that? And are their revenue streams consistent? And we can see some of their revenue here as well, saying it's sponsorship revenue. FaZe Clan generated total revenue of $18.8 million in the second quarter of 2022, which was an increase, which is good. Moving in the right direction. You're increasing your revenue, always good. However, with operating costs also increasing, the company's net loss increased year over year from $7.63 million to $9.32 million. So they're moving in the right direction on revenue, bringing in more money, making more revenue. But as that goes up, they're also going up in cost of operations and cost to run the business, which hasn't been profitable any single quarter even in its existence. So right now, the cost going up, the revenue going up. We just want to start to reverse that, have revenue continue going up and the cost coming down. That's going to be really good for FaZe. But the thing really pushing them forward and giving them at least a year, 2 years, maybe even a few years of kind of comfort is this right here. They're part of their merger. So the way they went public was the SPAC. And it says, as part of the merger, making FaZe Clan a public company, it received aggregate net proceeds of $57.8 million in the transaction and had $61 million in cash on its balance sheet following the business combination. So on their balance sheet, I didn't see $61 million in cash. They have it in a trust. They have a lot of money in a trust from investments. But if they need to, I'm sure they could pull from that and run the business off of that and kind of survive as long as They need to try and get to profitability, start making money, and get to those targets. They haven't really talked about any profitability stuff and targets like that, but with this amount of money, call it 60 million and call this 10 million per quarter, you would have 6 quarters before you run out of money to try and figure out something. And this is FaZe's balance sheet, part of their SEC filings for their earnings report. Here we can see this is their current assets. Cash is $41,000. This is in thousands, or in normal kind of thing, so there's no extra commas to put in from reading this. So they only have just under $42,000 in cash, which I think is kind of crazy to think about. Like FaZe Clan, they only have $42,000 in their bank account, and they're running this giant esports organization. It's kind of funny to think about. But they also have their prepaid expenses up through 41K, which is pretty good. But you see here, investments held in a trust account. That's where the majority of this money is, where it is $172 million in this account to bring their total assets to $173 million, which is pretty good to have. So you can compare this to where you look at their total kind of assets here, 173 million, and go to their liabilities, look at total liabilities, 6.8 million. So that is good, at least on that end, where they have massively more assets than they have liabilities. That's good to see. They're not profitable, but they have tons of money to be able to try and get themselves there. So from their first earnings report and balance sheet here, it at least looks like they should be pretty good at getting forward in this process and going at least a few years, and within that time period, hopefully finding a way to turn a profit and kind of go down that route and start making money instead of losing it. The longer this goes on without making money, the more problems are probably going to arise. And this is one of those problems too, where we see kind of the increase in the loss from operations, their cost right here, $520,000 from the 6 months ending in June from 2021, and a year later they're at $2 million in loss to operate. So that is a pretty big increase, and we have another increase too in just the quarter from 2021 to 2022, 340,000 turned into 1.1 million. So moving a lot higher on the loss of income to operate the company. So right now it's kind of a big thing that they might need to focus on, is bringing down operating costs or bringing in more money, and it have to be substantially more, because it's not like they didn't make anything. They made a lot of money. They made $18 million in this quarter, like right here, $18.8 million in this quarter, and they had this loss of 1.1 million on operations. They had a total loss of what it was 9.32 million. So they need to get this kind of loss sorted. They don't have a super time crunch for it. It's not something that needs to happen right now or they're done. They got some leeway with the amount of assets they have, and that's good for them. And we give them a few years to at least get their footing and try and go forward as this business, as they are brand new on the stock market. We can see right here, FaZe up almost 12%, 11.5% about for the last week. Basically their earnings report around this time, and it's been up and to the right since then. I don't really know exactly why or what other news has come out, because people, maybe they're super excited about the earnings report. I don't know, but it wasn't something crazy good. It wasn't terrible. It's FaZe Clan, their first report, but up and to the right for FaZe. And if we look at FaZe compared to a couple other publicly traded esport companies or companies in esports, we can see this Allied Esports, they're Astralis, I'm pretty sure. They have this kind of coming out, and they came out, launched, and then just down and plummeting to the right. Nothing going good for them. A little bit smaller of a company, 60 million. FaZe, according to this, is almost 1.5 billion, which is ridiculous. That's crazy that they're a $1 billion company in esports. And then another one, Enthusiast Gaming. This is another kind of team, but you see the trend here where it's they IPO and come out, and then it's just a collapse. So FaZe kind of went through that. If you look back, this is when they were announced as this SPAC, and they fell. But I mean, it has been up and to the right kind of violently since then. So FaZe doing very well. It might not be that fair to compare FaZe, I mean, a $1.5 billion company to a $60 million one or a $218 million one. I would like to see FaZe compared to 100 Thieves, compared to Optic, like these other kind of giant brands, or even the super bigger international brands they're really competing against, and not the kind of smaller ones where they're just not the same. It's not FaZe. It's not even close to FaZe. So, but FaZe Clan, pretty good earnings report. Looks like they have tons of cash from the acquisition or the launch, the SPAC, whatever you want to call it, that they got into the stock market with, that flushed them with cash. They have over $100 million in a trust and investments that they can use. And I mean, they look like they're pretty healthy, at least for the short term, in maybe riding out some bumps and bruises and trying to figure things out and be on the stock market here. So maybe a little rough on FaZe for the first kind of launch of its IPO, but right now, I mean, people seem excited about it. FaZe stock is up and to the right. It's rallying. So I mean, we'll see how long this hype lasts, and if it is just hype, and how long it takes them to turn a profit as one of the biggest orgs in esports. If they are struggling to make money and turn a profit, can only imagine what the smaller ones are dealing with. That's gonna do it for this video, guys. As always, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I'll see you guys in my next video.